watch
How?
this?
How?
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 Ew,
How do you watch this?
Dude, I'm gonna pee my pants.
Hi, you're listening to How Do You Watch This, a movie review podcast where each week we recommend a movie to the other person in the genre we love and they don't. My name is Megan and I love romance.
My name is Demi and I love horror.
And this is a romance week.
Yes, it is.
The best week.
No, it's a good one. I enjoyed my movie, so
Okay, good.
it wasn't a bad romance week. I'd say it's a good one.
Okay, well that's good. I'm excited to hear your thoughts, feelings, etc., etc.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about this, and I hope you have content because I have questions.
Okay, I will do my best to answer all your. I did read like a number of interviews, so
Okay, good.
I'll see what I'm capable of filling you in on.
So the movie Megan gave me, it was The Illusionist, and it is a 2006 mystery genre. And this is
it's
for
one of three like ghosty, magician-y, illusionist movies that was released that year.
There's
So
another one. What's the
there was
other one?
another one. I think it was called The Scoop or something, but it also had Hugh Jackman in it. Let me look.
What the fuck?
'Cause he was in The Prestige, but he was also
Yeah.
in. There was another one that he was in.
He loves magician movies, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't though?
It's true. Let's see. Okay, 2006. You sure it was Hugh Jackman?
Yeah, at least that's what I read.
2006.
See all
okay.
movies, unless
Damn, he was
hold down.
very busy in 2006.
Yeah. It was called Scoop.
Scoop?
What? Oh, maybe not.
Like ice
Hold
cream
on.
scoop?
Yeah, it was called Scoop. It's
Oh,
on-
I
but
see
I don't
in
know
here.
that it doesn't say anything about magic in it.
Comedy crime. Directed
Um,
by Woody Allen. Yikers. Okay, there's some sort of like tarot stuff. So
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
tarot's
Maybe
not
that's
magic. It's
not
real.
really. Yeah. Anyway, it was just like a fun fact I had seen, so I don't know the accuracy of it, but that's what they had.
That's pretty
I should say.
wild. That's funny,
Yeah.
especially that Hugh Jackman's into it all. This is for our common thread hidden gem, if you don't remember.
Huh?
And so the director for this is Neil Berger, and he's a pretty bigger director.
Uh-huh.
He directed
Uh-huh.
quite a bit of decent shit. He
Uh-huh.
did the Divergent series. if
Did he
you're a
do the
fan. Yeah.
Divergent? Stop! I did
Yeah.
not realize. Oh my god.
So my snapshot is Eisenheim is an amazing illusionist who reunites with his young love, forbidden to be together due to social status. A tragic event causes Eisenheim to mess with ghostly forces while the chief inspector attempts to end Eisenheim's career. Okay, so we'll jump right in. You want to say anything before I start?
I will. I'll say that I chose this one for Hidden Gem because I feel like it's not spoken about, especially not in the romance sense. I almost never see it on various lists. So I don't really see it talked about much. I don't really hear it spoken about much. And I was in love with this movie when I first came out. When I watched it, I was charmed. I was dazzled. I did not see the ending coming. So that was
Okay.
really fun for me. Yeah. So I was
feel like
also
it's definitely romance, because when I
Yeah.
started watching it, I was wondering if maybe it didn't feel super romancy because of everything else. But I would definitely
Yeah.
say romance is a big factor in this movie.
Yeah. I had loved it. So this was definitely for the longest time. This was my favorite movie.
Okay.
I would say for a good chunk of time, to the point where if you remind me later, I had a flashback revelation while watching this movie of how I had used to dream of being proposed to. So I will.
Let me write that down so we don't forget.
Okay. I'll try to remember.
Dream proposal.
And honestly, the fact that I have forgotten about it until now and it's now too late for this to be my dream proposal is very disappointing, but whatever.
Well, I'm sure it's got to be pretty incredible,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Obviously,
So
redo,
we'll jump.
redo.
Yeah. Well, if Travis doesn't even want to give you a fucking magic birthday,
I know.
I'm gonna
I
assume he
know.
probably wouldn't have pulled off whatever this
Ugh,
proposal
you're
will
so
be.
right. You're so
So,
right.
trash. Anyway.
Yeah.
Next time, right? All right, I'm starting.
Okay.
So the movement. Oh God,
Good. You got this.
I gotta breathe. Okay, I'm nervous. All right. The movie opens and we see a man on stage. This man is Eisenheim, the illusionist. He is played by Edward Norton. Great actor, although I don't like him that much. It didn't reduce any points in the movie, but I will say
Why
I
don't
didn't
you like him that much?
He just like, I don't know. He kind of like, he doesn't creep me out, but he just gives me like this icky vibe.
It's kind of like, is the vibe you get like pretentious art school male student who is very privileged?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay, because that's the vibe I got.
I hear he's kind of a dick too. So
yeah, I will say one of the things, and this was across the board with like both the interview I saw with the director and was with Edward Norton, and this really bothered me, is the first thing they all say about Jessica Biel's character is the first thing they say about why she got the position is her timeless beauty. And I'm like, way to downplay her actual talent.
okay,
Like,
yeah, she's easily the most talented in this movie.
Yeah,
and I mean, she's stunning, of course.
Of course, she's stunning, but that's not like
everyone knows that.
Yeah, like duh. You look at her and you're like, yeah, of course she's beautiful. You don't have to be like, she got the part B, she's beautiful. Oh yeah, and she's talented. I was
like all these, I feel like a lot of, because even Margot Robbie was saying that she didn't want to be known for like her beauty in these movies, so that's why she kind of did movies that she didn't have to be really pretty for. Yeah, and I respect that, because I feel like a lot of these women that are gorgeous like that get stuck in these fucking roles because Hollywood is gross, and it's like these are very talented women and they're more than their beauty. So.
Exactly.
But anyway, Edward Norton. Yeah, so like I said, it didn't reduce any points that he was the main character, obviously, because he's a great actor. But I don't like him as a romance option, especially next to Jessica Biel, who deserves everything.
She's way out of his league. So
absolutely,
let's be honest.
I think it was like his goatee.
I was just gonna say. I was literally just about to say the goatee. Like
it
really
did nothing for him.
No, it was a problem. I was not pleased about it.
So anyway, enough about his looks. The theater's packed with people, including a lot of officers waiting on the sideline. So at this point, we're thrown in the middle of something, and the movie is leaving the audience wondering what is actually going on here. Eisenheim then starts producing this ghostly figure. It's a little bit of like a little spirit-looking thing, and the crowd starts going wild, and they start saying, "That's her, that's her." But we don't see like what it is. Like I said, we're not given a lot of information at this point. And then after that happens, the chief inspector, Walter Uhl, and I kept calling him Walter, but then everything online kept calling him Uhl, so I'll just call him Uhl.
He's not like cool. It's like a strange name to say, Uhl, but
I'm like, Walter's easier, but it's fine. He's played by Paul Giamatti, and he was also really great in this movie.
Oh my god, he has really good facial acting.
Yeah, no, he was really, really impressive. I was very impressed by his acting in this. So he goes on to pretty much say that he's going to arrest Eisenheim for basically like necromancy and doing creepy shit. So that's the most we see, and it cuts to Uhl discussing a bit about Eisenheim, and then it cuts to the very beginning, like where Eisenheim came from.
And just to like make a comment about how when they do the flashback, they make it look like they filmed it with old-timey grainy footage. It's like a little sepia toned.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's like got a distorted quality to it, and the director said he wanted aspects of like various parts of the film have those like suddenly it'll go into almost like an old timey film like stutter, or like so the framing is off, and he wanted it to feel uncanny and like a little bit like that feeling of watching magic, or just having
the movie took place in 1900s, right? Like early.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Let me actually look, because it is based on somewhat true events.
It's like before TV, so people just went to see magic shows.
Yeah, in the late 1800s.
Okay.
At least that's the incident it's based on, is in the late 1800s.
Okay. So, humble beginnings. Eisenheim, whose real name is Edward.
Yes.
He's the son of a cabinet maker, and he supposedly, this scene was like so goofy. He supposedly becomes interested in magic
Yeah.
after encountering an old traveling magician. And the traveling magician started doing like crazy shit. And I was
Yeah.
like, is this a wizard? Like, is this real magic? Because he's like changing things into a flute, and then the flute's flying. And then he supposedly just disappears with the tree he was next to. And like I said, it's just stories, you know.
Yeah.
It's
like the
talked
lore
down.
that has been spread about Eisenheim that people are like, this is what's happened to him.
Right. So I was like, what the fuck? And so I'm thinking, I'm like, is this gonna be like real magic? Because it's not what I'm expecting. So anyway, Edward starts practicing magic and illusions, and one day he meets the Duchess von Treschen, aka Sophie, and they're both young at this point. And they had this little relationship, and she sneaks around to see him because he's a poor boy, and she's basically a princess, so they can't be seen together, God forbid. And so they have this cute little romance, and he makes this wooden pendant for her, and it's like you twist it a certain way, and it opens up, and there's like a goofy little photo of him inside. She, of course, loves it. It's very cute. And so they decide they want to run away together. But then Sophie gets caught, and before they get caught, she's like, make us disappear. And he like tries, and I'm like, bro, you know magic isn't real. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But it was cute. He really tried. So, I mean, it would have been nice, but
Yeah.
And he's very lucky he wasn't fucking killed, because that
for
would have been a
realsies.
real crime. They
When
pretty
they're
much
caught in the dark together alone.
He was like a peasant. They could have just fucking killed him and thrown him in a ditch, and no one would have said anything, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But they let him go. And so after that, he decides to leave home and travel, and he starts going by the name Eisenheim. I don't know how he brought that name up. I don't know if there's any information on that. It's a cool name.
Probably if I had read the short story, I would know the origins. But even though the short story is only 20 pages, guess who didn't do it? Me.
I actually forgot it was based on a short story.
Yeah.
It's fine. So
Whatever.
Yeah, it's fine. So, like I say, he travels around for 15 years and then ends up in Vienna. And he puts on these incredible illusion performances. And even for me, I was like, what the fuck, dude? Because I'm like, that's magic. And then I was like looking stuff up. I'm like, damn, some of these were like legit. I think all of them were like real
they were
tricks.
all...
But in the movie, they used CGI. So that's why it felt fake. I don't know why they decided to do that.
So the reason why is because the director wanted to give the same feeling that those people in the audience would have had watching those effects. So basically he said he took real life magic tricks and turned them up 20%. So
that makes
it's
sense.
all like every illusion that's done in the movie is an illusion that was done at some point in time. However, they use the CGI to make it more impressive so that the viewer in modern times could feel that same level of awe that maybe you would feel back before you knew all about the mechanics and other sorts of modern technologies.
Yeah, because the one trick he does, he like takes an orange, like a seed from the orange, puts it in a pot of soil, and then it starts growing into a tree like immediately, and it produces more oranges. And I was like, God damn, that's pretty cool.
Well, the orange thing, that's what made me start doing research on the magic tricks. So I was like, it's like, there's no way that one is real.
Right.
Like, I don't like, where did that come from? And then apparently that one actually was a trick that was done. Did you look into that trick at all?
I looked, so I know it was a Houdini trick.
Not Houdini, Houdin. So Houdini.
There's two Houdins?
So I know, I learned a lot. I learned a lot in my research.
Oh my gosh.
Houdini took his name from Robert Houdin, who was a magician, and Houdin,
I guess that makes sense because Houdini is not that old.
Yeah. So Houdin is the person who created the orange trick, where basically he would like lay a seed on the ground and then put a piece of paper on top of it and then play like a flute or whatever to make it move. And then he would remove the paper and the tree would be growing. And basically what it was just a series of mechanics. And inside of the tree branches were little like slots that would open, and it didn't look like the way he made it, it looked like the
Right.
orange was growing from it.
Yeah.
And he would take out a real orange and then cut it open and show everyone a real orange. So it was a trick that was done. It just
Yeah.
obviously was not done to
Yeah,
the effect
definitely
that we saw
different.
on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a pretty cool trick. So he does that and a few more things, and he's getting very popular. And in the crowd is the inspector, Uhl, that we saw in the beginning, and he's really loving the performance. It's very different, opposite vibes than what it was when we saw him earlier. So I'm like, oh, I wonder what happens here. What does Eisenheim do? So Uhl and some of his men go to inspect the theater because the Crown Prince Leopold is going to attend tonight's show. So Uhl admits that he's dabbled with magic and is interested in it, and he really wants to know how the orange trick is done. But Eisenheim is very hush-hush about it. But he shows him a different trick, and they have like a good, friendly conversation together.
That other trick that he showed him, so it's a trick where you like put a ball in your hand and like lift it up to your head, and basically you figure out which hand it's in based on the blood rushing from your hand. The amount of times I did that trick with my siblings after watching that movie, I just like had
It's
we
a
did
good
it to the
trick.
point. Yeah, we did it to the point where it didn't work because we had done it so many times that between different hands that
Oh my
there was no
gosh.
blood in either hand.
So that night, the Crown Prince is there, and he's there with Sophie. Surprise, surprise.
And then
She is his lady, and she is played by Jessica Biel. So Eisenheim, during the show, he does his thing, and then for his final trick, he asks for a volunteer, and he's talking a little bit about death and what it means to die. He needs someone who isn't afraid of death. And the prince volunteers Sophie because he's a little bitch. And so she's walking up, and Eisenheim realizes who she is after her name is said. And so he realizes who she is, but she doesn't recognize him still. He even asks her, like, do you
obviously.
know me? Yeah, she's like, no. Because young Eisenheim was played by Aaron Taylor Johnson and does not look like Edward Norton.
nope.
So for this trick, he pretty much kind of does this little hypnotizing thing in front of her, and she puts on this robe, and he has her stand in front of this big mirror and wave to her reflection and then bow to it. And then as she bows, the reflection doesn't bow. And then another reflection is behind the reflection and just kills it with a sword. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And Sophie like looks behind her, but no one's behind her. It's just in the mirror. And then from the body, like a ghostly spirit comes from it. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is a little crazy. And
this is a little crazy.
and it kind of spooks her and causes Sophie to like fall back, but Eisenheim catches her, of course.
Yes.
But it was like a real fucking creepy performance.
Yes.
And it was so impressive that the prince met with him to pretty much ask him to do not ask, he demanded it, a private performance at the palace. And so at this point, we get multiple bits of dialogue that the prince is pretty much a scumbag. And if you couldn't tell from how he looked like an asshole. And he supposedly murdered a woman, but I think it was pushing her off a balcony or something.
Yeah.
And so Eisenheim's hearing all this, and he is not happy because Sophie is his girl, supposedly.
Yeah.
So the next day, he ends up getting a letter from Sophie, and they meet inside of a carriage, which seems a little scandalous. I'm like,
Yes,
Sophie,
very
what
scandalous.
are you doing?
I know, it's a little risque.
And so she realizes who he is. I guess she figured it out last night or thought about it. And so they're talking, and she's still wearing the pendant, which is really cute. And one of Uhl's goons is keeping watch of Sophie to make sure she's safe. And he does see her talking, like leaving the carriage with Eisenheim. So they were talking. And so this leads to Uhl pretty much asking Eisenheim what the relationship is. And Eisenheim was like, you know, we were young. We were friends when we were young. Nothing more than that. So Uhl kind of decides that there's no real threat here. Like, it's fine. It's not a big deal. But they're kind of keeping more of a close eye on everything.
Yeah.
So at the palace performance, Eisenheim's doing his thing, and the crown prince is interrupting and is like, oh, you probably did this like this and this. And Eisenheim's like, whatever.
The crown prince is trying to IRL, like in real time. I don't know why I said IRL. In real time, he's trying to deduce how everything what happened and was how the magic happened, and everyone in the audience is like, dude, just like
Yeah,
let
sit
it
your ass
happen.
down.
Enjoy the
So,
show.
Yeah, so then Eisenheim decides to embarrass the prince, was just probably not a good idea, but
Yeah,
he
that was
deserved it.
a super horrible idea.
So Eisenheim asks us to see the prince's sword, and he has this
Okay.
very pretty bedazzled sword. And he takes the sword and sticks in the ground somehow. It's not like he doesn't stick in the ground, it's like floating, but it's stuck on the ground.
It's based on electromagnetism, apparently. I mean, in real life, I don't think that a sword would stand on its sword tip with a magnet. I think
No.
it would fall over, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool.
Yeah.
So it's sticking up, and he's pretty much talking about like King Arthur, and only the rightful ruler could remove it. So a few men in the crowd try to pull it, and it's stuck. It's not moving. So then, of course, the prince goes to move it, and it's not moving still. And then it like moves once Eisenheim, I guess, allows it. I don't know how
Yeah.
he did this trick.
Yeah.
But this might be real magic. So obviously the prince is embarrassed, but it's funny because he deserves it. And
Yeah.
Sophie is distraught. She's like, "Why would you do that?
Right.
Like, this is not good news.
Not the kind of enemy you want to make.
Absolutely not. No." So then after the performance, the prince tells Uhl that he wants Eisenheim shut the fuck down because he embarrassed him and he's a little baby. So then later, Sophie goes to see Eisenheim in his house, his cabin out in fucking middle of nowhere. And their sexual tension finally breaks, and they totally do it.
Yeah.
And she's wearing nothing but the pendant, just like Titanic. So
It's a very 1900s thing to do. Just wear your necklace. That's the
Try
old
that
timey
trick one day.
lingerie.
I don't even know what necklaces I have. I have my Libra necklace. That'd be a very Libra thing to do.
It would be the most Libra thing to do.
Anyway, so after their little shindig, they're talking, and she tells him about the fucking batshit plan the prince has, where he wants to take Sophie to Budapest, announce their engagement, and then gain the alliance from Hungary. Why did I write that like that? Hungary.
Hungary.
I was like Hungary. Anyway, gain his alliance and then overthrow his father, who's currently the emperor, which is crazy. And he needs Sophie for this because her family has ties. Sophie doesn't want this, obviously. And Eisenheim asks if Sophie really wants to run away with him. And she says yes. And then it cuts. So we're kind of thinking like, okay, there's going to be some plan here. They're going to finally do it. They're going to run away. So the next day, the theater shut down. Eisenheim's manager is pissed, obviously, because they were getting very big and making mad money.
Yeah, and Eisenheim made a bad choice. Sorry.
He did.
He definitely his ego got the best of him.
Yeah, no, definitely. He got a little sassy, a little spicy, and, it fucked shit up. So, but, the prince is a dick, and he's got his girl, so he's going to do what he must, I guess.
Yes.
So, Eisenheim then goes to the bank. It takes out all his money and puts it all in a suitcase. And Uhl's men at this point are keeping an eye on him. So, one of them sees him walking with the suitcase to a carriage where Sophie is, and they kiss in public, which I was like, oh, my God. Which I think it was like planned a little bit later on in the movie. But at this point, I was like, what the fuck are y'all doing?
Yes. Yes.
Obviously, this guy snitches, and Uhl lets the prince know what's going on. And the prince is upset, but he doesn't seem super pissed. Like, he doesn't, I don't think he cares that much about Sophie, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's kind of like, well, I need Sophie for this alliance, so this sucks.
Yes.
That night, Sophie is waiting in his office for the prince to come, and the prince, he goes in there and he's accusing her of being a hussy. Yeah. And he doesn't want her in his bed if she's in another man's bed. And she's like, well, I'm not going to be in your fucking bed anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Budapest. I'm out. And he's like a little drunk. He's been drinking, I don't know, whatever fucking red liquors in his office. So he's obviously a little more crazy than usual. And he slaps the fuck out of her.
Yeah.
It's like, how fucking dare you?
Yeah.
And so she leaves. And then I was like, oh my God, like, you're crazy for doing that. But she's running out.
You think she's crazy for leaving? Okay.
Yeah, well, she obviously should leave, but also...
No, I know. I'm curious what... Yeah.
Like, I thought he was just, like, gonna fucking shoot her right there because, you know,
Right.
obviously he's an abusive piece of shit, so.
Yeah. Right. It feels like if anything, it would have been smarter for her to be like, okay, yeah, everything's good, and then
Let the
sneak
tension
away.
tie down, yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not
This
what
is her-
happens.
Yeah.
So.
Nope.
So she leaves, and then the prince is, like, following after her. She goes down to the stable where her horse is at, and the prince is following her there. And at this point, we see from the viewpoint of, I guess, like, a guard or a
Yeah.
servant that's, like, watching. And he sees them go in the stable. We only hear stuff. So at that point, we hear some, like, screaming, and it sounds like someone's getting murdered. And
Yeah.
so the guy's like, oh my God, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
And then Sophie is on her horse, and she leaves the stable, but she's, like, hunched over, and it looks like she's hurt or possibly dead. And it's not good vibes.
No.
So the next morning, her horse is found with no rider, which is not good. And so a search party.
What was your thought? What was your thought process at this point?
I thought she was fine. I'll be honest.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
I think I figured out what this movie was gonna go for.
Okay, that's fine.
But yeah, I mean, I didn't, just because the way it was shot, I was like, okay, I don't think she's really dead, because why would he shoot it this way?
Yeah. It's okay. You're 18 years older than I was.
Yeah,
when I
mean,
watched it.
yeah,
so
when I
it's
was young, I would have been like, oh my God. But
Yeah.
yeah, at this age, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
It didn't ruin the movie experience for me, but
Yeah.
so search party's looking for her, and they end up finding her floating in a river. And at this point, I'm like, okay, she was given something to look dead. I was like
Okay.
fully convinced, and I'm like, man, if
Yeah.
she's actually dead, I'm like gonna be really
Yeah.
bummed
Upset.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so it looks dead as fuck, and the cause of death seems to be that she bled to death from the wound on her neck.
Yep.
And so Ul is trying to see her, and the coroner's like, yo, chill. So even that was kind of like, okay, you know, there's something a little going on here.
Yeah.
But the coroner gives Ul a small gem that was found in a fold of her dress. And at this point, I was like, okay, that gem is obviously from the sword. But Ul does not put two and two together. And I'm like, bro,
No.
you're
Yeah.
chief inspector.
Yeah, I know.
So he just ignores it, but he takes it anyway. So
Yeah.
Eisenheim's obviously blaming the prince. He's devastated. And Ul's like, nah, like, it's not. And a week later, some rando was arrested. They don't even say who it was. They were just like, oh, some dude was arrested for the murder.
And you never find out if this man ever gets out of jail or...
No, he might have gotten killed for this.
Right.
This was legit a princess that was murdered. So R.I.P. to Rando Man.
Yeah.
So at this point, Eisenheim is putting on a different type of illusion show. And this shit had me tripped up. I was literally like, what the fuck's going on? So basically, he finds a new theater, and the show includes summoning ghosts. I don't know. So he's like on stage, and it's a little spooky, and he's sweating on stage, and he's straining, and he kind of pulls forth a ghostly hologram. And it's a very clear, like, looking hologram of a person. And the person's talking back and forth with the audience. The audience is like, oh, are you a ghost? How did you die? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, how the fuck was this trick done? And I looked a bit more into how it could have been done. But I was still like, oh no, man. This had to take a lot of fucking mirrors and shit.
Yeah, literal smoke and mirrors. And
Yeah.
I would pay money to go to a show where they recreated
Oh my
all
God,
of
yeah.
the old fashioned tricks of the day, because obviously, like, knowing what we know now,
Right.
you'd be able to be more aware of it. But I would be so fascinated to see. Basically, it was like ye olden CGI. Like, they were just
no, they
using-
got creative as shit.
they really did. And what I was reading online was, it's just like technology was not pervasive back then. And amazingly, illusionists were some of the few people who had like access to this technology, so they would use it, and none of the audience realized what was going on.
People like, what the?
Yeah, they're like, oh my God. I think I could be wrong, but I think in the movie they show the chief inspector like, oh, this is maybe how it could have been done with like a I think that might have been a recreation of how it actually would have been done back in the time, but I could be wrong.
He did bring something up. It was like some sort of camera thing. And at this point, Eisenham also hired these men. And these men, it looked like they were from China. Because when he was traveling, he went to different countries and stuff. So he learned magic from a lot of places. So I was wondering, I was trying to look up if they had a specific name or title and to see like if they influenced this type, not influence, but like, I don't know if they had something that helped, but I guess they were just there to help with the mirrors. I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it adds to the mystery because people were like, oh, we're all these, they call them, not a great term, but
no, of
there's
course,
all these Chinese men here, like
Yeah.
in this time period where there was a lot of just white people
right,
hanging out in fucking London.
right.
So he's doing these tricks, and you know, another show, he has this like little kid running around, and people would put their hand and it would go through, like it was like a real ghost. And so people were like, yo, this is crazy. And he legit grows almost like a cult following. Like people are just obsessed with this, which is fair because if he's like summoning ghosts, anyone who's lost someone could be like, he might summon, you know, bring up who I want.
It ties in with the spiritualism movement where people were, you know, putting on shows to kind of create the feeling like they're speaking with ghosts. And then those people who became devout believers and spent all their money, time, and energy into contacting the spirit world.
Yeah. So Uhl does have a few conversations at Eisenheim, and he's like, yo, how are you doing this?
Yeah.
Because at this point, you can get arrested for fraud because the prince still very much wants Eisenheim taken down. And Uhl at this point doesn't want to arrest Eisenheim. He likes Eisenheim, but, you know, he can't disobey the prince. So Eisenheim then tells his followers, because they're like outside of the, the police office, I don't know.
Right.
And they're just hanging out because they're upset that Eisenheim is getting mixed up with the police. Yeah. And so he tells them that this is all an illusion. It's not real. You know, you can't believe everything I'm doing. And so this gets him out of a possible fraud charge. Then the prince decides to attend one of the shows in a disguise. And he's got this really impressive mustache. And I feel like he did like a Clark Kent type of thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like that mustache alone would have been like, that might be the prince.
But also, not a lot of lay person, I think, would have had access to him. You know what I mean? Like, what would you would have seen a painting of him or a reproduction?
That's very fair. Yeah.
So I think
that's true. He's not like strolling around.
Right. So I think that plays a big part in it.
It's not like on People magazine.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like if you saw like Prince Harry walking on the street. Which, by the way, I don't think I would recognize Prince Harry. If anything, I'd be like, that person looks a little bit like Prince Harry.
I know, because it's like, yeah, he's ginger, but I feel like a lot of ginger guys look kind of similar.
Yeah, no, but actually, though, it's like, is it him? Is it that guy from About Time? You know, it's all the same.
Yeah, Ron Weasley.
Yeah. But I loved the scene with him putting on the disguise because he looks so proud of himself.
Yeah, he's like, oh, check me out. And it's just like a suit and a hat. Like,
right, exactly. Not
anything crazy. So he's in the crowd sitting at this theater watching the show. And at this show, Eisenheim summons the ghost of Sophie. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, is this bitch like hiding in the back or is she actually dead? I don't know how like they did this. And so the audience is like, oh my gosh, like who killed you? And a lot of people are like talking shit on the prince. They're like, yeah, it was definitely the prince. All this goss. And then the prince is thinking that Eisenheim is just influencing these people to think badly about him. So he's just hating Eisenheim even more at this point.
Also, the Duchess at that point says that her murderer is in the audience. And no one realizes that the Emperor is in the audience. But it's a moment for Uhl where he is starting to really consider the Emperor as an option for her murder.
So Uhl then talks to Eisenheim and's like, yo, you can't bring Sophie back on these shows. And Eisenheim's like, I don't care because it's the only way I can be with her. So we go back to present time. So what the beginning of the movie started, we're now there. So now we understand the context of what's going on. Pretty much Eisenheim was summoning Sophie again. and it caused Uhl to be like, all right, I gotta arrest you,
Yeah.
and for like threatening the crown and all this shit. And so they go to arrest him, and then Eisenheim's a ghost too. This tripped me up. This was my most. Was this my most memorable scene? I think it was. It had to be, because I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
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 This or the first ghostly illusion scene. Like
Okay.
anything with that, I was like, whoa, okay, I
Yeah.
didn't expect that. But yeah, so he like gets up. The police try to like grab him, and they go through him like a ghost, and then he just disappears. And I was like, what? Yeah. So super intense smoke and mirrors. He was a ghost the whole time. I saw a theory online. They were like, what if Eisenheim was dead the whole time? I'm like,
Oh
what
my
the hell are
God.
you on?
Yeah.
So at this point, the police raid the theater. They go to his home to try and get some answers. Uhl sees a book that says Orange Tree, and so of course he's curious and opens it to see if he can learn how the trick is actually done. And inside is the original blueprint for the pendant locket that Eisenheim made for Sophie. And you realize that Eisenheim's kind of leaving a little hint there for Uhl, because Uhl, I don't know why, I don't know how. This gets a little tricky for me. So Uhl then remembers that he saw something a little sparkly at the stables where the prince was laying drunk and Sophie supposedly got killed or slayed. And so he goes back and he sees the locket there. And so he's messing with it, opens it, and then he sees another gemstone in the hay. And then he realizes that both gems fit this prince's sword perfectly. Obviously, ain't nobody else got gems like that.
Yeah.
So he confronts the prince, tells him that he told the emperor everything, even the plot to overthrow him. The prince panics because the emperor's guards are on the way, and he ends up shooting himself. And after all of this, Uhl's leaving, and he gets handed the book, the Orange Tree book, by a little kid. One of those like little street bastards.
Yes.
And the kid tells, he's like, where, like, who gave you this? And the kid says, Eisenheim. So then Uhl realizes the pendant's missing from his pocket and sees a man walking away with a suitcase. And he realizes that it's Eisenheim, I guess, in a beard.
Yeah.
Even though he only sees his back, but he's just assuming. Because at this point, he's like, I don't think Eisenheim's dead.
Yeah.
So he he doesn't catch up with him, but they're at the train station. And then he starts having this like epiphany. He starts thinking back. And he realizes that earlier he saw Eisenheim talking to this old man at the train station, pretty much saying that he's going to leave first and then Sophie's going to go, like their plan to leave. And then he remembers the coroner was the same old guy. So Uhl somehow getting flashbacks of scenes that he should not have got flashbacks. I think it's for the audience sake. But it goes back and it's showing that, Sophie did have something that made her look dead, and Eisenheim gave her drops to like wake her back up. I don't know what he could have given her. Everything was pretty much planned. So she just like fake died, which I'm a little like, as the princess, wouldn't someone want to like recover her body?
I mean,
bit of a plot
you
hole,
would
but it's
think.
okay.
Yeah, that's fair. I never considered that about her being a duchess and pretty influential and her body going missing, but
Yeah, they're just like, just take it away.
yeah.
We don't need the body.
Right.
So, anyway, so Uhl realizes that this was all a plot to pretty much fake her death. And he's laughing at it. He's like, this is, in his head, like, he's just realizing this is a fantastic illusion, the greatest trick he could have done.
Yep.
And then it ends with Eisenheim meeting her at this adorable cabin in this fucking insanely green, sprawling landscape.
Yes.
And he hands her back the pendant.
Yeah.
And that is how the movie ends. So, the scene I wanted that should be deleted, I had a hard time picking a scene. I didn't think any scene really needed to be deleted. But I think the flashback realization could have been done a little different. I don't know. But it was for the audience. So, but like I said, I couldn't really think of much. So, love interest, smash, Sophie, of course.
Yeah.
The side character, Uhl, I said pass.
Okay. He's a little corrupt,
Yeah, a little bit. He's a little sleazy.
Yeah.
Not the worst, but
right.
how likely to fall in love? Even though it's Edward Norton, I put a 10. Because if someone was able to do a magic trick to fake my death,
That we
and
could
pull
be
it off really
together.
well, yeah, that's pretty impressive. So I feel like
Yeah.
I have to give it a 10.
Okay.
I would recommend this. I think it had a lot to it. I thought it was pretty cool. It had really good acting and it had a cool twist. Even though I saw it coming, the twist of him being like not real on stage, I
Yeah.
didn't expect. So it
Yeah.
still, got me. I gave it a 4.3.
Okay.
I did enjoy it. I thought it was a good time. So I
good.
wanted to watch The Prestige again so I could kind of compare because I remember
Did you?
really enjoying The Prestige. No,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Because we did the emo bingo. I was gonna watch it with
Oh, yeah, fair.
I don't want to compare them, but I have to. But I remember The Prestige, I don't know, explaining things a little better at times, but it is a different story. Like I feel like The Illusionist has more of like a fantasy element to it. Which was cool. Like it was very much like what's real, what's not. I don't know. And The Prestige is very much like, no, like this is how things are done. Like this, and I guess it's like more based in realism. And I thought The Illusionist would be a little bit more like that.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But just a little bit of difference. But yeah, I think the twist was not super obvious, but I think the whole theme of making her disappear and like it like added up. Like even thinking back, like his trick with her on stage of being slayed with the sword, I was like, oh, it's like all connected, which is pretty cool.
All connected, yeah.
It's all connected. But yeah, so that's my rating and breakdown of The Illusionist.
All right. I'm glad you liked it. I was curious what you would think. Okay, I have a couple more fun facts for you. Apparently, Edward Norton did most of his own magic tricks that were filmed. So all the sleight of hand stuff, everything that was like the trick with the slow orange being lifted into the air, all that stuff.
Yeah.
That was all him. He worked with like a magic coach and a famous magician whose name I forget. Ricky Jay.
Okay.
So I think some of the more complicated tricks were Ricky Jay like subbed in. It was like a hand stunt or something. Okay. Another one is that the love scene was entirely lit by kerosene lamps. So by the end of each take, the room was filled with smoke to the point where they couldn't see. Which, can you imagine? You're literally like almost naked together and you can't breathe.
Yeah, wait. So like, why did they do that? I guess that was the only way to light it up, right? Like,
I mean, I think they wanted it to be as authentic as possible. But I would think that back then they would have had a way. Well, they probably, I guess they would have snuffed out the candles maybe or opened a window. I don't know.
But like, what do they do at night then if they're just like hanging out and they need light? They just can't have light?
Maybe you just do candles and the candles didn't give enough lighting. I don't know.
That's fair, because if it was just like candles, it would have been too dark.
Yeah.
It would have been extra sexy though. I thought you were gonna say there was like a double for the sex scene. I was like, I guess we didn't really see their faces, so maybe.
Really, it could have. It actually could have. Who knows? Okay, so basically, and this is what I was trying to say earlier, was that the way that they would have created that like ghostly image is a technique using something called a phantascope, which apparently when he was getting ready to leave and he was like, Eisenheim told his assistants like, oh, leave the lanterns. Those were like phantascopes. And so the phantascope would illuminate a real person off stage, which would be reflected off of a mirror or glass plate, creating a ghostly image. And okay, this is my last one. I want to talk a little bit about the actual historical event that it's based on and the short story. So the short story, like I said, is a 20-page short story. It won a Pulitzer in 1997. It's called Eisenheim, The Illusionist by Stephen Milhauser. And I read an interview. I couldn't find anything about his thoughts on the movie. Apparently, this interview came out before he had seen the movie, before it was in theaters. So I'm really curious what he thought about it. But in that story, there's no Sophie and there's no Crown Prince, and Inspector Uhl is like not in it a lot. And it ends basically when Eisenheim gets arrested. And it kind of creates this vignette that's like he's arrested for disturbing the peace and like causing an uproar with his
spookies.
And so that's where the short story ends. And so the director basically took that and like ran with it and like kind of beefed it up so it could be a story. But the actual historical like inspiration as well that Milhauser based Eisenheim partly on Robert Houdin, who I had mentioned earlier. That's the father of modern stage magic. And that's around like 1870. And the characters that the director brought in, so like the Crown Prince and stuff, those are loosely based on Prince Rudolph, who's the son of Franz Joseph, the emperor of the Austria-Hungarian Empire from 1848 to 1916. I'm directly quoting the director at this point. Sorry. And basically, the story there, from my really brief dig into Wikipedia, it's called the Mayerling incident. And essentially, the prince was in a relationship with a baroness, so she was far below his standing, and the emperor was like, you may not be together. And so apparently they don't say it's a double suicide, like a suicide pact. It was like a murder suicide. But what you're reading is that they both agreed on it. But, you know, I don't know if that's true. It might not have been agreed upon. The word murder gives me the idea that maybe she wanted to live.
Yeah.
But so essentially they both died because they couldn't be together. And so that kind of inspired the idea of Sophie being murdered and then the prince committing suicide. Those were inspired by that incident. I will say that when I was watching this movie as an adult, I didn't realize how dark it is, because I think that as a child, I was like, hey, she's alive and they're together. And I grazed right over the fact that they basically framed this man to the point where he was like, I can't get out of this. And he died by suicide.
Yeah.
Like, that's dark. They essentially killed him. I mean,
they technically killed the prince. Which is like, he could have been technically a murderer because he murdered another woman.
That they say,
Goss. But yeah, it's like they just wholly framed him and he killed him himself.
Yes.
Because he like blacked out, so he's thinking like he could have done it, but he obviously doesn't know.
Right, because
so I guess
he wasn't. Also, that's to say, he was not fully, like, he was not drunk from his own drink.
Yeah. That was the thing I missed.
Yes.
Sophie.
Spiked his drink so that he was acting out of sorts and he passed out. So it's possible that like he thought maybe he thought he did kill her or something, but I don't think so. Like, he always was like he was saying to Uhl, like, this is all part of his plan. Eisenheim is doing everything and tricking you, and he was.
Well, he did it.
He was correct. Like, you're looking back and you're like, the prince was right. I mean, he was a jerk, but he was
at the end is like, cool trick,
LOL.
bro.
Yeah, that was so funny.
Yo, that was crazy.
Oh my god. But I do feel like also Uhl's career just like was flushed down the toilet too. Like, he basically went from, he was going to become mayor of Vienna.
Yeah.
He was going to basically skyrocket through, and then because of Eisenheim's trick and the prince not becoming emperor and all that kind of stuff, it ended up causing him to lose his job. He says at one point, I was the inspector, but now he's chief inspector. Now he's not. So
that's true.
Eisenheim
just ruined everyone's life.
He really did, just so that he could live in the woods with Sophie. And I'm
same.
not saying it was, I'm not saying that it wasn't like a, thing that other people wouldn't want to do, but probably not the best way to go about it.
They could have maybe thought of a different way.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't
just ran. There's no phones and shit. Where are they gonna find them?
because Sophie said at one point, "He'll find us," and it's
Well,
like,
they
but
probably
Lydia
wouldn't.
though, Lydia
They could have
though.
gone on a ship, gone to the New World,
You
Americas.
literally back then they just made your like birth certificate in pencil. You just like erase it and rewrite the name.
Yeah, you just
Like,
make some shit up. Like,
right, exactly.
they'll just change your name on the fucking passenger boats to a
Exactly.
different place.
It's not It's not like how it is nowadays. So they could have
They
gone to
definitely-
America and started anew, but God forbid. They
God
would have
forbid.
ended up on the Titanic, and then that's when we get the Titanic.
It's true. It's
So-
true. Yeah, you're right. It's fine. They had to do it this way. It's the only way.
Yeah, it was
You're
the
gonna
only
waste
way.
your magician talent to
Yeah,
just
exactly.
normally escape.
Right.
No.
I'm also curious, like, I mean, he must have had a lot of money in the bank. They're just going to live the rest of their lives in that little forest
Yeah.
house. And then are they going to have children? Are those children going to be little hermits who don't socialize with other people? You know?
It was like in the middle of nowhere. It felt like a
Yes.
dream. I'm like, this
Yes.
is a real place.
Yeah, it really was.
Well, they got horses, so I guess they can do horse stuff.
They do.
Whatever
do have
horse
horses.
produced.
Well, nothing.
What? Yeah, I guess they
eat-
just hang out,
I mean,
right?
me, if you're a disgusting person and you eat horses, but otherwise,
Yeah,
I
they
don't know
just-
what horses
They
do.
just hang out. I
Yeah.
guess.
You ride them.
Roman.
Yeah, there's no like horse
So they'll
milk.
need. They'll definitely need more animals.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, we're just judging the shit out of
Yeah,
romance.
yeah.
I feel like you're very critical.
I
They're
am.
romance.
It's just sorry. It's
For
really
once,
it's all
it's just
coming to
funny.
me now. Where I mean, I was just like so into it. I still loved it, but like I think
Yeah.
as an adult watching it, I'm much more critical of it than I was.
It's a different
back.
perspective. Yeah.
Right, which is very interesting because, like I said, this was
Mhm.
my favorite for a while. So I wanted to tell you about my dream engagement.
Yes.
So for the longest time, I was like, how I want to be proposed to is I wanted someone to make me the necklace. Of course, not buy it. Make me that necklace, the little wooden one.
Yeah, yeah.
But it had to be big enough, and then I would open it, and there would be a ring inside.
Oh, that's
I
actually a really
know.
cute idea.
I
thought you were gonna say
know.
something about like some fucking crazy
A
illusion
magic
shit.
trick? No,
Yeah.
it was literally just something simple and cute.
Yeah,
Travis could have done it if,
if he
I
cared.
remembered it 5 years ago. He also told me that I tried to get him to watch it with me at one point. Totally forgot about this, but he said I tried to get him to watch that movie with me, and he fell asleep during it. And I was like, "You're so fake for that."
Fake fan. Yeah. I don't remember. I remember like my like dream proposals. I remember one clearly, and it's really embarrassing. But
Okay,
I'll say
tell
it.
me.
So I was really into those.
Yes.
It's incredible who I was as a person.
Uh-huh.
Those like musical number proposals where it's like a
No.
one of those
No.
flash
The flash
mobs.
dance?
Yeah,
Stop.
I would fucking die if that ever happened to me now.
Oh my God, no.
But I was really obsessed with that, and I was like, oh my god, like I was obsessed with Bruno Mars, of course. So the song
Yeah.
"Marry Me" by Bruno Mars would play, and it'd be a
course.
flash mob performance.
My God.
proposal for me. So,
Oh my God, do I
that's-
have a movie for you? Okay.
oh
Locked in. I have one locked into my mind. Here we go. I'm going to give you a flash mob
Perfect.
at some point.
Oh,
Not
fuck
anytime
yeah,
soon.
okay.
It doesn't fit with our current.
Dude, I was obsessed with flash mobs. I wanted to be in one so bad.
Stop. Really?
I'd still be in one.
I
Yeah.
definitely loved them. Like, I thought they were amazing, and I loved watching them. I don't know how I would have felt about I think that there was a point in time when I was younger where big romantic gestures like that would have been amazing, and I would have been
Yeah.
like, hell yeah.
Right.
But now,
We're
as
so riddled with anxiety. And...
right, where I'm just like, no. Like it's not even like the fear that it would be someone who I would want to say no to or whatever. It's like
Right.
I don't want all these strangers looking at me.
I
That's
know.
disgusting.
It's...
But I guess that also goes towards me cringing when I see people singing to people romantically because
oh
I'm
my
like,
god.
no, stop being vulnerable.
Well, that's supposed to be my birthday gift for you. So sing to you.
Oh, I think I'm sick on my birthday and I won't be there.
I guess I'll do something else. It's fine.
I mean, you've been working on it for a couple years, so I guess I'll just like grin and bear. Could you imagine if you showed a die party? She's like, I've been working on this for 2 years. And she just starts singing like
It would have to be a song I made for you. If
it
at that
would be.
point.
And at that point, I think I would actually love it. I think I would die, while it happened, but I would love it. It would be like The Family Man, you know?
It's endearing because I'm
Yeah.
not a good singer, but
Yeah.
a little cringe.
Just a little.
Okay, so next time,
Yes.
it will be a horror week. So, got a good one for you. I'm gonna have you watch The Invisible Man. This is the 2020 remake. So this movie is about this woman, and she's in this really shitty relationship with this guy, and he works for this super high tech company, and pretty much he commits suicide, and she's convinced that he is not fully dead and that he is still stalking her. So yeah, it definitely was a lot better than I thought it was gonna be. I didn't think it was gonna be good because it's a remake of like an old monster movie, but I was very impressed by this. So hopefully you like it too.
Okay, sounds like
no
a lot.
comedy. Yeah, it's
No comedy,
but it's pretty cool. It's got cool things going on for it. Hopefully you don't get a fear of invisible stalking.
Well, stalking is one of my biggest fears, but I don't think that I'm going to be convinced that an invisible person is stalking me. So
That's fair. Anyway, so you guys can reach out to our social media on How Do You Watch This on Instagram and Threads, and How Do You Watch on TikTok, and How Do You Watch This at gmail.com if you want to send us anything cool. We also have a Discord. And everything's on our milkshake on our Instagram.
Pretty much the best place to go is the milkshake, I think.
Yeah, the milkshake's got it all. So, yeah, but
awesome.
We'll see you next week
See you in the spooky aisle.